Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. I think it has just gone afternoon, so we will kick off on our session this afternoon. Thank you so much for attending. I really encourage you to ask questions via our Q&A as we go along, and we'll answer them throughout the session for you. Our session is being recorded today as well, so feel free to post questions anonymously if you don't want to share your name. Recordings of the event will be available via the Microsoft team after the event. And if you do have any sound problems today, if you're having trouble hearing the audio, then we'd recommend that you just close off the meeting and join in on the link again, and that tends to fix things. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Yugambeh people, the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm presenting today, and respecting those where you're gathering from as well today. Pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today with us on this session. So again, welcome. So my name is Mark Savory. I'm the head of e-learning at Emmanuel College on the Gold Coast. We're a prep to year 12 school of around 1,600 people. I've been there just over 16 years now. Part of the furniture, I think, at Emmanuel, and I've had quite a vast experience of starting there actually as an instrumental teacher, and then moving into classroom teaching across the primary school, then having a number of different roles across curriculum, across deans of year, and now sort of landing in what is really my dream job at the moment in the e-learning space. So I've been at Emmanuel for a while. I've been part of the Microsoft Innovative Expert Educator program for about 5 years now as well, and have loved that program just to be able to really connect and collaborate with other fantastic educators. And I am a Microsoft Fellow for this past year as well. So it's been quite an exciting journey, particularly those of us sort of working in these fields of technology. And particularly through this year, what a different, weird, but also exciting year it has been. So thank you, so much for joining in on this session. So today we really want to have a look at some aspects around Microsoft Teams and looking at this best practice for hybrid learning. And as I said, it's been quite an unprecedented year, really, for teachers, for students, but also, for families as a whole. And, Teams has become a very much needed tool to facilitate online learning. In Queensland, we've been out of lockdown, for around a term now, but there's always still that aspect that we need to be ready, because you never know what might happen, and we may need to go online again if the need arose. And post-lockdown, I know and recognise that there might be people attending this session today that are still in lockdown, that maybe still are teaching remotely. And so, for those that are or aren't in lockdown, we want to look at how we can keep using these fantastic tools in innovative ways to even prep for this hybrid learning scenario. So let's dive in. So I guess it's kind of important to have a look really at what is hybrid learning before we look at these great tools that we can utilize for it, but to have a look at, well, what is hybrid learning? And I guess when schools started moving out of remote teaching, there was a variety of kind of different models that were happening. Remote learning experiences that were implemented by schools and even universities during this pandemic revealed a number of different challenges, including things like equity, access, internet connection, and even capacity. And as quarantine, orders have sort of come to a close in some places and continued in others, there's been a lot of school systems around the world looking at the best ways to try and gather in schools, gather on campuses for universities, but also connecting with students remotely. There's still a number of universities that have had classes of 500 or 600 students that can or can't gather in their lecture theatres. but still even having a large component of students that are stuck overseas. So needing to look at how do they cater for the students that are on campus, but those that can't be on campus, and catering for those that are online as well. And I think people are exploring a number of sort of different educational models to meet the needs of their students. Some of those, even through COVID, we saw aspects of this partial opening where some schools and institutions of higher learnings were allowing specific students to return to campus, whether it was essential workers or we opened up first the manual with our younger students, or students with special needs, or students who did not have access to connected devices at their home to enable remote learning, while the remainder of students continued in that virtual environment. So there was this kind of partial opening. This synchronous and separated, where some institutions were conducting those face-to-face and online instruction at the same time, where some students were on campus in person and others were joining the class remotely. And also we even saw that aspect of rotational learning where during COVID, some schools were rotating the students on and off campus through the week, where some students attended classes for specific days while their peers worked remotely, asynchronously on the same days, and on other days the attendance flipped, and those who were working remotely went to school while the others worked online. So there's been, a range of different models that people are exploring. And I think what is exciting is that COVID has brought the opportunity to really reimagine what education could look like. So again, I guess looking at hybrid learning is really that combination of the best of what we do in school and the best of what we could do online, using that digital engagement. It's a way to try and enhance and accelerate the learning by providing student-centered approaches to foster these skills and competencies, that meet the diverse learners' needs. And to create this kind of hybrid environment, we need to consider the physical and virtual learning spaces that assist to create that dynamic interactions with our students who are both in person and those that are joining remotely. I think through COVID as well, and through our initial period of online learning, some schools and students' experience of online learning was from that very passive use, where it was maybe having a few online videos, and there might have been some digitized worksheets, and to be honest, that probably got a lot of schools through. I think what it doesn't bring though is that active engagement that really develops rich learning. And I think even for us as a school, looking at what we did in our period of online learning, to if we were to go into another period, I think the expectations on us would be quite different from our parent body as well. But the nice thing is we have the tools and we have the capability to bring that really active engagement to our online and physical classroom spaces. We want to have a look at some of those tools that we can utilize to do that today. So since COVID, Microsoft has released this Education Reimagined PDF, which you can simply Google and download if you would like a copy. It's got some really interesting things in there, and one of those aspects is it mentions this Education Endowment Foundation that was looking at distance learning, a rapid evidence assessment, in which their research indicated that the most powerful teaching practices used worldwide to support and improve learning for students who are not able to attend classrooms were some of these key aspects, that it was still the teaching quality was more important about how the lessons were delivered, that the peer interactions can provide that sort of motivation and inspiration to really improve, to learn from each other, to collaborate and improve those learning outcomes. There was a drive to support the pupils to work independently, was showing that it can improve learning outcomes. and also different approaches to remote learning. And I would even say different technology tools to assist in those approaches, can suit the different tasks and the type of content that you're covering in your classes. But the big thing was ensuring that the access to technology is really key, particularly for disadvantaged learners. And so it was really interesting seeing those things that were coming out of the research. And technology will always just be a tool. Teams can't make you a great teacher, but a great teacher can use these tools and do something really innovative and exciting for their kids. So it was interesting that the first thing was, really still driving that quality of teaching. So I guess part of this process of looking at hybrid learning really requires us to reflect on what has been our current teaching practice post or prior to COVID, and also what could a new reality look like. Considering things like our physical and our online classroom space, like what does that now look like? The structure of your lesson. Again, when we were looking at our first move to online learning, teachers were like, but I can't talk on an online call for 50 minutes. And we said, well, you wouldn't normally talk for the full 50 minutes of your lesson. So it's considering those things, looking at what you would do in your typical classroom and how that correlates to this blended or hybrid environment where you might have kids working in an online space as well. Okay, the structure of your lesson. How do you structure that to incorporate some individual work time, some group time? How do you collect and give feedback around assessment items? How can you build a sense of community and relationship when some students are in your class, some are at home? How can you monitor, keep an eye on student well-being, which we know is so important nowadays, particularly through this season? And also developing, well, what is this good mix of face-to-face time, still having that face-to-face contact with your teacher, and knowing that maybe, not every lesson is going to be a full instructional video lesson. There might be aspects of tutorials or small group work, individual one-on-one. So how can we, what does this sort of new reality of the classroom look like? And it's all really important things. And to be honest, that is likely to look different between different schools, because it's going to be what is a priority for you and your school, excuse me, and you and in your classrooms. So again, having a look at the structure of your lesson and really being able to reimagine, what you would normally do in your class to what you potentially could do for online that could be utilised by the students in your class, but also those working remotely. So rather than asking students to draw or paint something in the classroom there, whether they could use a technology tool to create or design in 3D to look at a model or an aspect of learning, how students could conduct experiments using technology or a simulator rather than just the physical environment if those students aren't there to be able to do that. How they can, present their work and their findings, how they can demonstrate their knowledge of what they're learning compared to writing in a book in their classroom or developing a poster that you put up on the wall. Looking at aspects of, again, creating storyboards, and then importantly as well, looking at the kinds of assessment, how you could reimagine that to look in an online and hybrid environment. Okay, Microsoft has put out some fantastic examples of tools and things that teachers have been doing around the world in ways that they have been really utilising these tools to restructure some of their lessons. And in this Year 8 science example, you can see it's also catering for the different learning types of people, convergers, accommodators, divergers, the different learning methods and styles of the children in the class as well. So you can see in this science example, there's a group of students have used Minecraft, the element constructor in there to look at atoms, be able to report back on the different atoms or different elements. You know, students have been able to use Paint 3D to create a 3D model. The nice thing about all these Windows 10 and Office 365 tools is they just work so smoothly and integrate so well together with each other. So again, looking at tools like PowerPoint that you can then import those 3D models into. You can give little animations. Okay, using tools like Sway to develop presentations and reporting back on their findings. So there's a whole range of ways that for students that were in your class or online would be able to collaborate, you know, over these tools and be able to still work together to present the same way, whether they were on campus or off. So Teams really is this digital hub. It really is a one-stop shop, which is what I love. You know, we often find there are different tools for different jobs, which is great for the variety, but making it easy for students can be another thing. And again, I think a lot of people were introduced to Teams as a way of just creating a virtual classroom to be able to do some online calls, some online lessons with their students to facilitate that online learning. But there is also the potential for so much more than that. Today, I'd like to show you some different ways to utilize Teams as this learning platform, not just for online learning, but to show you hopefully some new and innovative ways as well that you can teach your students for hybrid learning and also utilize the tools that are in there for a hybrid environment. So as we go through some of these features and tools within Teams, I really encourage you to have a think yourself about how you could utilize this for a hybrid learning, you know, environment in your situation, in your school, with students in your class, but potentially for also those that could join remotely. Oops, skipped a page for there. All right, so call features. So Teams has some fantastic call features, and there is only more and more coming out as we move through, and probably as the developers have been given a chance to actually stop and breathe after COVID. There are more and more updates coming out which have some fantastic features for the classroom. So, you know, we know that you can do online calls through Teams for class meetings, for tutorials. Students can use the raise hand feature or the chat window to ask questions, to share insights, answer the instructor's questions, even to give simple feedback like thumbs up, acknowledging, yep, we've got it, no, I need help. There's always got to be some emojis and memes in there. It doesn't seem to matter what you do. Kids will always come up with some emojis, but it's good. You know, one of the new features with the whiteboard, there's a collaborative whiteboard in Teams as well, which is fantastic for kids that are in class, but also working remotely. The new whiteboard features enable you to also lock and unlock the ability for students to collaborate. So as a teacher, you can utilize that space locked down so no kids can mix it or move it around, as I think, you know, a lot of kids love playing around with the features and seeing what they can do. And, you know, but you can make that a collaborative board as well. So, you know, kids working in different groups can, you know, can share and collaborate on that board. We know there's the opportunity to share your screen as we're doing, and the nice thing as well is if you allow it, kids can share their screen. So even for kids working remotely, there's a really nice opportunity for kids to be able to demonstrate or show their work if they're off campus. One of the things I've been playing around at the moment is with a little Bluetooth earpiece microphone. Because for a number of our online lessons, we had everybody's webcam turned off, and the focus was more on the screen that was being shared and that talking collaboration around it. But if I was in a hybrid environment, I could run a Teams call, you know, sharing a screen that was being seen by the students remotely through Teams, but having that same screen being seen on the interactive board in my classroom. And students online and in class can hear me talking as I run the lessons. They could participate through the chat discussion. Kids in the class could, you know, participate as normal, asking questions, and also utilizing this collaborative whiteboard in Teams. But the nice thing I'm finding testing this little sort of Bluetooth earpiece is that if a student online asks a question, well, I can easily hear that and answer for them or to the whole class without needing it to necessarily direct to the whole class. But also without needing my classroom speakers to be up so loud that it would possibly be a distraction if somebody did ask a question, from home. I think my challenge at the moment is that everyone at Emmanuel is back to school, so we don't have students working remotely at the moment that I can do some more of this testing with. But it is something we're testing because we want to be prepared as the opportunity arises. But the nice thing about a little Bluetooth earpiece, rather than being sort of tethered in as I am with my earphones today, is that I could still walk around my physical classroom space. I'm not tied to being in front of my laptop. As a laptop in a classroom, we don't typically just stand in front of the whiteboard for the whole lesson. We do move around. But if we write on the board, that's going to translate for people online as well. If we still have some sort of microphone attached, that's going to translate to people being able to hear that at home. I think the nice thing about this little Bluetooth earpiece as well, though, is that it localizes the sound as more, so it's not picking up so much of the classroom noise. So anyway, that's something we're playing around with. We've had some hits and misses with it, but that's all part of the trial and error stage, I guess. I'll keep you updated as to how we get on with it. Okay, files in Teams. Again, teachers can share read-only content to the class materials folder. So every class team in Teams has this class materials folder. If you've been a user of OneNote, then you'll know that, you can have this space where you can put whatever materials or teaching resources you like in there. Students and teachers can access it, but the students can't change anything in there. So it's a nice way of guaranteeing that your documents don't change. But putting them in the generic folders means that any of those Word, PowerPoint, Excel files, they become a collaborative document. Students and teachers can comment, can add to each of those files. And even those files, the online Word has a chat feature to allow for conversation within that document. So again, if you're doing group work, you wanted each group to work on a document, you could put that in your Teams library there. The students would have access to it. Again, being on SharePoint, that's got version history. So if something goes really bad, you can bring up a prior version. So that's fantastic. And also being on SharePoint, you've got this anywhere, anytime access, that 24/7 access to what they're doing. So, the files within Teams is a really great way of just being able to keep their materials and, work collaboratively on documents. Okay, in Teams as well, you can create different channels. You can create those channels as being private or just open, so channels that everyone in your class can access, or channels that only a particular groups of kids can access. And people have been using these in all different sorts of ways. So channels can be organized by weeks. Some people have organized it by topic or by an assignment. We've got some in our grade 5 and 6 classes that are around reading groups. And teachers can create private channels where you only add, there's certain students from those groups to collaborate on projects. But additionally, instructors can create virtual learning centres with channels as well, and direct learners to specific channels for meetings, questions, or even just for socialising, for that social connection and building relationship. So you can see here in this picture, there's 4 biology groups. They're all open groups. If it's a locked group and you are privy to that group, you'll see a little lock icon next to it. But a teacher could have 4 different groups within their classroom, all working on a call that is scheduled in there, and the teacher can drop in and out of the different calls. Okay, there are breakout rooms coming to Teams shortly, but I think later in October actually, which is great. But for the time being, even creating a call in each of those groups would allow students to do a online meeting, to be able to have chat around it, to share documents, and the teacher to still be able to drop in and out to manage and facilitate those channels. So channels are a really nice way of being able to organize your class and the learning as well. If you create a channel and you rename it and you click Windows and the full stop button, that will open the emojis, and you can even use emojis to help distinguish different channels, or to create some little icons to make it visually easier for the kids to find or to access, or even to put a red cross next to channels that you want to keep the work in there, but that you're not using now for this term. So the Windows plus full stop is a nice little shortcut hack to access emojis if you're wanting to utilize them within your channels. So there's all sorts of different ways that you could structure and organize your channels. You can have quite a lot of channels in your team. Obviously, that could make it easy or difficult for your students. So it's really worth thinking about how you want to structure those channels to benefit the students in your class, but it's a great way of being able to organize your learning. So have a think about how that could fit in your environment. Class notebooks. So if you haven't dived into OneNote before, and particularly the class notebooks, I can't recommend highly enough doing that. That was one of the first things that really drew me into Microsoft and these fantastic tools that we're using, was going to a session actually run by the amazing Amanda Frampton, who is assisting in moderating some of our Q&A today, who's on the call. So thank you, Amanda. It's her fault. I really got into what I have with Microsoft, but I went to an initial, training on OneNote that really just blew my mind, that opened my mind to this possibility of a digital notebook. And OneNote is just that. It's a digital sort of 3-ring binder for a course. So teachers can, again, they can share read-only content and resources in a content library of the notebook. You can have a collaborative space where students can work on groups, they can work as a whole class, but also students have their own individual workspace where they can complete tasks, assignment, homework, worksheets, take class notes, where you can access your whole class as a teacher, but students only see their component of that. So it's a fantastic digital resource. So every team, every class team that you create will have a notebook, a class notebook as well with it. Okay, at Emmanuel as well, this has really become our digital whiteboard. We use this for a lot of our lessons, because when you make annotations and you write on that whiteboard, students have then got a record of what they've done for the day. So rather than having to go back and re-explain a content, you can say, well, check out our lesson, that's on OneNote. You can see exactly what we did. You can embed a whole lot of content into there as well. And also digital inking over their work is a fantastic way of giving feedback for students, whether it's digital inking, whether it's making audio recordings, whether it's creating video responses. OneNote is really an amazing tool. And accessibility, it has all of those wonderful immersive reader tools to read, to dictate, tools to support changing background colors, font size, all of those sort of things. There are some fantastic accessibility tools that are built into, the majority of the whole Office 365 suite, but particularly through OneNote is fantastic. We'd love to give a shout out there to Andrew and Nathan, or Rico. This is a little screenshot from one of their tutorial videos. They have a YouTube channel I'll mention later that's called Everything OneNote. They've got some fantastic training videos in there. So I really recommend, if you are using OneNote or you're keen to get into OneNote, have a look at some of those. They're just short videos, but they're fantastic. So thank you guys for allowing me to borrow that little screenshot. So in Teams as well, there is a whole wealth of apps that you can integrate with your class team. So I know there's a lot of people use Flipgrid, even things like Kahoot. There are different apps for well-being. You'll see on this little image on the left-hand side here, you can pin different apps along the top of your class team. So when students log in, it's only a one click to access those. So, you know, for tools like Kahoot, or, you know, even Flipgrid, you can have that pinned as a page there. So it's really easy to access. The other nice thing as well is that you can pin open documents or websites. So at school, we have a different LMS that we're using at the moment. So we can, in each of our class pages, add a pin and tab their LMS class page. So again, we can drive everything from that one-stop shop in Teams, but it's easy access to these other tools that we're using, rather than having different places for every different tool that the students have to go to. Okay, so in there as well, you can pin open a Word document. So if you had a criteria sheet for a Year 9, you know, or Year 10 English assessment, you could pin open that criteria sheet for the period of that assessment. So it's there, easy to access, easy to see, kids can refer back to it, and then, you know, you can add or remove those as you go along. As you can see in this list here, there are just endless apps for different things. There's some fantastic apps that have just come out to do with well-being as well, where, you know, you can run a quick sort of well-being poll at the start or close of your lesson of how you're feeling today. You know, how did you find that lesson? Do you feel confident? Do you need more support in this? You can customize a lot of those responses. There's some great apps in there as well for project work. If you're doing project and you want to be able to assign different tasks to different people, there's apps for that. You can pin streams and PDFs, all sorts of things. So have a look in Teams. If you haven't used it, or if you used it simply for that online calling, have a look at these other areas that you can expand it, because again, having that easy access for students, whether they're in class, still easy to access, or remotely, easy to access. Stream has been another thing that's had some really nice developments to it as well. There has been a lot of teachers that have recorded video tutorials through Stream. You can do screen recording straight into Stream now as well. But a lot of people were recording their, you know, online lessons and then having that in a library instead of Stream. That, you know, sometimes it might be that there's just a click link in your chat channel for students to access those videos. One of the things that team has enabled us to do is these stream collections now. And, you know, a lot of these things, I just want to highlight these tools for you, but I'll show you some resources at the end where you can learn how to do them. You know, they're really simple ways of doing those, but I didn't want to take up all of the time demonstrating how to do all of these features today. I really wanted to just give you a bit of a highlight of some of the different features there that you can use. But using Stream, typically if you've recorded some videos, you'd see them appear in a list like this in Stream, which for students, they might need to go and search. If you posted about it in your channel, you can link to that. The other thing that you can do though is create a channel in Stream, and you can pin particular videos to that channel. And then in Teams, with this plus bar, you can add a stream channel. And what that does is we'll pull in any of those video clips. So rather than just having a long list of all different sorts of videos, or every video that's associated with your class, you can bring a collection of videos into a stream collection in Teams, so that, you know, it might be around a particular topic, whether you are learning about the environment for the term, and so you could create a channel in Stream that is about the environment, and then any videos or teaching tutorials, lessons about the environment, you could put in that channel. And then in your class team, you can pin that channel so it brings up in little like cards those relevant videos. So it's really a nice way of being able to make a collection of their learning rather than just going to Stream or trying to paste endless links to different videos. So if you haven't played with that, really encourage you again, check out Stream Collections. There's a number of YouTube clips that are just 2-minute, 3-minute videos on how to do that. Okay, assignments tabs. You know, Teams has the capability of doing assignments as well, being able to grade, being able to give feedback, being able to give sort of stickers and praise, rewards for students. So there's some really nice ways that you can distribute and collect assignments through this assignments tab. They can also attach OneNote pages for students to complete, links, other files. Students can turn in the assignments through the assignments tab. And then once turned in, teachers can review the work and give them feedback. They can either allow students to revise their work based on their feedback, or they can finalize it and return a grade. So, students can see their results in the grades tab. Instructors can review, or individuals or the class's performance on an assignment. For us at Emmanuel, we haven't done a lot in that space at the moment because we've been using a current LMS. But it's something that we're looking at. And again, there are a lot of schools that are using all of those tools, in the assignments and grading, and a number of schools are moving to Teams as their LMS. So as I said, every school is on a different journey, and you can really choose the tools that are going to enable your school learning to be successful. Having a look at a few last things. Forms is another fantastic tool that embeds so nicely into Teams. So a number of people, I'm sure you may or hopefully have seen or used forms before. So forms, you can create quizzes, you can link them to instructional videos. You can even embed a form within a stream video as a sort of interactive thing to do partway through, or as a little knowledge assessment at the end. You can also create assignments with a forms entrance or exit ticket. Additionally, teachers can collect information from students. You can even do little forms polls along the way, even just in the chat. Or you could create a forms which could be added as a separate tab, like we did with our stream collection. In forms, you can also do branching, where branching allows the students to respond to that question. If they answer it incorrectly, the feedback feature in forms can direct the students to a specific page or a video that helps them then, again, gain confidence or find the answer to that question. So again, if it was a mathematics question that the student got incorrect, it might send them to an instructional video that says, okay, this is how we work out the sum. Great, now go and try it again. And again, if the student answers it correctly, the feedback can send the student to a resource with additional information, those fast finishers, for extension, or to just challenge them further. And creating notes within a quiz allows instructors to really be virtual tutors for their students as they practice concepts. So you can embed documents to those quizzes and things now as well. So there's some great tools that are really enabling that forms to go further with what you can do with it. Data insights is another great thing that is really developing in the team space, and is particularly useful in this hybrid sort of environment where we're wanting to know, are our students engaged? Are they active on the calls? What's going on? So you can add a data insights tab to any of your class teams. It gives you a bit of a dashboard which will show some of their digital activities. If you've assigned grades, you can see where they've been involved, and even for wellbeing. If kids are on at 9-10 o'clock at night and you're not, then it might warrant that discussion. Okay, what were you doing online here during that time? Was it that you just were really inspired and wanted to get on with your project? I can see your two mates were online at that time as well, so I'm guessing probably not. So it gives you some data analytics to reflect on as well, particularly with the assignment. It can give you lots of data around those assignments, average time for feedback, and their communication activity. And their data analytics is only improving more and more with what they are analysing as well. So I know there are some more features that will be really useful that are coming out soon too. One of the other nice things really that is quite new within Teams is being able to create a SharePoint page, so like a home page within Teams. It is a few more steps. Those that are familiar with SharePoint, I'm sure would find it easy. But again, there are some tutorial videos, but basically in this example, you can see you can pin a SharePoint page where within SharePoint, they have different templates where it might be towards a topic or a week unit of learning where you can give different instructions, review the lecture slides. Well, here you can actually embed those PowerPoint slides as well. Might be that you've embedded a little poll as well. Might be that you've linked to a YouTube video or a stream video. And so you can create that sort of page of learning that students can just see. So it is quite simple to do. Again, there's some great instructional videos. You can also create SharePoint pages for your staff as well if you're wanting to create a homepage for your staff in Teams that link to different things. There's lots of great templates and tutorials on how to do that, so check out that. Okay, there are some great courses on the Microsoft Educator community, so I really would encourage you to have a look at those. You know, some of those, the newer courses based around Teams. You know, you've got this crafting collaborative learning environment, transforming learning, ones for supporting staff as well. There are some fantastic courses on the whole accessibility and immersive reader, how you can utilize those tools, you know, for kids that are in your class, on campus and off. So check out education.microsoft.com. There are some other great resources as well on YouTube. If you don't already, I really highly recommend checking out Mike Tolfson's YouTube channel. He has got resources on everything Microsoft, and he works with a great team that puts together some fantastic resource videos. A lot of those things, SharePoint pages, knowing how to add all those pages and insights into Teams. Check out his YouTube channel. They're all short videos, really easy to follow and easy to implement. So check out that. Again, the Everything OneNote. They've got some great resources around OneNote clips, training, different aspects of things to do for OneNote. Microsoft Education as well has a YouTube channel. There's lots of you can videos that are just 90-second clips of different tools, different things you can do for your classes to really engage and enhance the learning. So I'd really encourage you to check out those as well, some great resources. So thank you so much for joining us today. We might have, I think we've got about 2 minutes of time left. If you have any questions that haven't been answered, I'll jump in and check those in a moment. But just to let you know as well that the recordings of all of the sessions today will be made available via the Microsoft team, and you can watch on the YouTube channel as well. So stay up to date via the Microsoft social media channels. Really encourage you to join that Microsoft Educator community. Check it out, there's some great learning resources in there, and keep being change makers in your schools, your universities, places of work, wherever that is. And thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. So I might throw it back to you, Amanda. Are there any other things you'd like to communicate before we close off our session today?
Thank you everyone for attending, and all the links that you'll need are in the chat. So hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Ending the live session now.